The film begins with a man adrift in the open ocean. The man is Captain Allison, a United States Marine who survived a Japanese submarine attack in the Pacific Ocean. Allison has been adrift at sea for 7 days, drinking only rainwater to survive. Allison eventually washes ashore on an uncharted island in the South Pacific. Upon entering a village, he is surprised to find no life. However, as he approaches an old church, he is suddenly startled by the appearance of a woman in white sweeping the church floor. The woman was initially frightened, but after realizing the person in front of her was an American Marine, she immediately greeted him. The woman was a nun named Angela. She was currently trapped on the island after escaping from Japanese soldiers, who had killed and captured missionaries on their way to the Fijian Islands. Angela had to survive alone on the uninhabited island. The island was originally inhabited by local Fijian tribes, but they were eventually forced to abandon the island after Japanese troops destroyed their settlement. Angela had previously lived with her priest, but the priest died 4 days after arriving on the island. Angela could only hope for a miracle, hoping that American troops would arrive and rescue her. Unfortunately, at that time, the South Pacific Islands were almost completely occupied by Japanese troops. Hearing this, Allison promised to help Angela escape from the island, and he planned to build a boat from the rubber floats that had saved him earlier. Fortunately, they did not run out of food on the island because they could make use of the crops left behind by the owners who had fled to save themselves. One day, Angela saw a turtle swimming near the shore, and Allison, who saw it too, invited Angela to catch the turtle because he wanted to teach Angela how to hunt for survival. With whatever tools they had, the two began running toward the shore to catch the turtle, and with Angela's help, Allison managed to snare the turtle's head. Unfortunately, the turtle dragged them out to sea, forcing Allison to dive in order to catch it. Once they had caught it, they returned to shore to eat the turtle's meat. The next day, while Allison and Angela were repairing the rubber boat, they suddenly heard Japanese military planes circling overhead. Allison was worried that the Japanese soldiers would discover them, so he immediately urged Angela to hide in a cave. Unfortunately, the Japanese reconnaissance planes had already spotted them, because the next day the island was bombarded by the Japanese army. After the Japanese army planes left, Allison emerged from the cave to assess the situation and discovered that everything had been destroyed. Not only the residential areas, but all the fruit trees were also destroyed, and even Allison's rubber boat was destroyed. Unfortunately, they had no food supplies in the cave, forcing Allison to think hard about finding food to survive on the island. The next day, a Japanese Army company unit began to approach the shoreline as they were planning to use the island as their base, and the arrival of the Japanese soldiers certainly posed a new problem for them both. Allison then reminded Angela to stay in the cave while he tried to find supplies for food supplies. The newly arrived Japanese soldiers immediately combed the island to ensure it was safe to use as a base. Fortunately, they did not find Angela's hiding cave. In the afternoon, Allison tried to catch fish among the rocks, but suddenly he was startled by the flash of a flashlight in the distance. It turned out that Japanese soldiers were patrolling the coast, and Allison, aware of the danger, tried to hide behind a large rock so that the Japanese soldiers would not see him. After the scout boat left, Allison immediately brought his catch into the cave, but unfortunately, Angela refused to eat the raw fish she caught. Then James tried to persuade Angela to eat the fish so they could survive until help arrived, and because Angela was pressured, she finally tried it, but unfortunately, she couldn't stand the fishy smell of the raw fish. At night, Allison began to secretly worry about Angela's health, and he plucked up the courage to steal food from the Japanese soldiers. Allison began to sneak closer to the Japanese barracks, and finally he managed to get past the guard post. However, his efforts were not easy because inside the barracks it turned out that the Japanese soldiers were still gathered and on guard. Allison finally could only wait for the right time so that the soldiers would not see him. And after making sure that the Japanese soldiers were fast asleep, Allison finally managed to bring some food to take back to the hiding cave. In addition, he also took the time to bring a comb as a gift to give to Angela. The next morning, Angela was confused when she saw a package wrapped in leaves and decorated with a flower, while Allison waited behind a rock to see Angela's reaction when she opened his gift. Unfortunately, Angela told Allison that she couldn't comb her hair because when she took her vows as a nun, she was required to cut her hair short. Hearing this, Allison told Angela to just throw it away, but Angela still wanted to keep it as a memento from Allison. Allison then asked Angela if she could stop being a nun and live as an ordinary woman who could marry a man. Angela replied that a nun's vow was not something to be taken lightly, and that at the moment she only loved her God. Hearing her answer, Allison looked a little disappointed. While they were chatting, they were suddenly startled by the sound of bombs exploding in the middle of the ocean. Allison went outside the cave to see what was happening, and it turned out that a major war was currently raging in the Pacific Ocean between the American Navy and the Japanese Navy. After the sound of the explosion faded, Allison bravely inspected the barracks where the Japanese soldiers had been resting and discovered that they had left. Allison invited Angela to look inside the abandoned barracks. Apparently, the Japanese soldiers had only temporarily left the island, as evidenced by the large amount of food supplies still intact inside the barracks. Of course, Allison did not waste the opportunity to steal their food. In the end, they both decided to stay in the barracks for a while, and afterwards they sat back and enjoyed the beautiful sunset in the afternoon. The next day, Allison began to entertain himself by singing his favorite songs, while Angela spent her time sewing clothes. Suddenly, Allison boldly asked Angela to marry him, and seeing Allison's sincerity, Angela was touched. However, with a heavy heart, she refused and explained to Allison that all her love had been given to her, God. Hearing that answer, Allison felt disappointed and immediately rushed off to check the situation around the beach, while Angela's eyes were filled with tears. At night, the two of them returned to rest in the abandoned barracks, and while cooking rice, Angela accidentally found a bottle of liquor that had been deliberately hidden there by Japanese soldiers. Unfamiliar with the aroma of the drink, Angela gave it to Allison, who told her that the drink Angela had found was sake, a typical Japanese drink that tasted similar to wine. Without hesitation, Allison invited Angela to drink with him, but because the drink contained alcohol, Angela refused. Because his heart was broken, because Angela rejected him, Allison vented it by drinking the sake alone and seeing that Angela had forbidden him to drink a lot, but Allison was already very drunk. That's when rude words began to come out of Allison's mouth. He even asked Angela to have a relationship with him, and because of fear, Angela chose to run away into the forest. Seeing the woman he loved crying, Allison deeply regretted his actions, and afterward he tried to chase her to apologize. But because it was raining heavily outside, Angela finally fainted. Allison, who saw Angela fainted, immediately helped her, and afterward took her into the cave that had previously been their first hiding place. The next day, Japanese soldiers had returned to the beach, while Angela's condition worsened inside the cave. Allison then dared to steal into the Japanese barracks again to find cloth and medicine for Angela's recovery. However, this time his actions were discovered by one of the Japanese soldiers who caught him. In the end, Allison was forced to kill the Japanese soldier, and after confirming the man's death, he dumped his body in a crevice in the coral reef on the beach. Allison finally managed to bring some food and blankets for Angela, and when she woke up, Angela looked shocked to see the cloth covering her body. Allison then explained everything, and afterward apologized for causing Angela to fall ill. However, trouble arose again when Japanese troops discovered the body of their comrade who had been killed by Allison. The commander ordered his soldiers to burn the area and search the island, but fortunately, the Japanese troops were unable to find their hiding place. That afternoon, Allison heard the sound of dozens of planes dropping bombs around the island. Allison ran outside to see it, and knowing it was good news, he danced for joy, even more so after seeing dozens of planes flying overhead. It turned out to be American fighter jets that had previously defeated the Japanese in the Pacific Ocean. After half of the Japanese army was destroyed by American bombardment, Allison and Angela began to struggle with their respective decisions. Angela wanted to stay close to Allison, while Allison hoped Angela would abandon her intention to take her final vows as a nun. One last time, Allison reiterated his sincere intention to ask Angela to marry him. However, once again, tearfully, Angela firmly refused because she promised not to break her vows. In the end, because his love was unrequited, Allison finally decided to return to battle against the Japanese forces, and he began by destroying the Japanese army's cannons hidden on the island. His shoulder was injured, but in the end, Allison managed to disable all of the Japanese army's cannons so that they could not destroy the American forces. The next day, the American forces finally landed on the island and immediately rescued Allison and Angela. Angela was able to return to her country and continue her service at a convent, while Allison returned to his unit and the film ended.